Chapter 231. Exploring Angora. Most of the demi-humans here had lost far too much hope in living in Angora City. And the only reason why they hadn't left it yet was because they were sure that no one was going to take them in. But now that Michael assured them their own place back in the parched lands, they had no reason to stay here any longer. Of course, there were still some who wanted to stay in Angora City for one reason or the other. If you want to stay, then I will give you a job and a place to live. You will be part of our nation too. Shiina, please make sure that these people are taken care of in the meantime. Michael's trusted secretary Dragonborn quickly took to work and began to command the Rebornians to start the migration process. But Sir Michael, they are still considered as citizens of Angora City. I doubt that the soldiers will allow them to leave so easily, said Plato the inn owner. I have it under control, said Yuna. All it takes is just a little bit of paperwork. As expected of the diplomat, she was quick to arrange documents for the migration. I'm happy for them, but what am I going to do now? Asked Plato. You could join them too if you'd like, but if you want to stay, then I have a job for you. I want you to do the same thing you've been doing your whole life. An inn caretaker. Part of our business here in Angora City will be a safe haven for demi-humans to seek. Here, they can apply to become a citizen of the nation of Reborn and be sent off to the king's region as soon as possible. Plato's eyes moistened as he realized he could still help demi-humans even if he had lost control of the inn. It would be in an even greater capacity now that he would become part of this reborn nation that could spend 500,000 gold coins so easily. Let's talk inside. Show us around the place, Michael said. Soon, the rest of the Rebornians finally had a place to stay for the rest of their visit here in Angora City. Of course, it was only temporary as they would soon rebuild this inn into something a little more Rebornian. Seeing the broken flooring, leaking roofs, and lack of flowing water in the room, the Rebornians felt even more thankful that they met Michael. If not, then it was possible they would be living in this kind of place even now. As Yuna and Michael ironed out the paperwork and contracts needed to establish the Reborn company in the city, Zion, Grieve, and Fudge all decided to take a stroll around the city. A dangerous combination if Michael had ever seen one. But since he had an orc accompany them in the shadows, Michael was assured that he would be notified as soon as possible if they ended up creating some kind of chaos in the city. The other engineer Rebornians didn't waste any time and began scouting the inn, creating and planning the blueprint for the eventual building. Soon, afternoon came around and the royal and his guards came back knocking on the inn's door. It's official, he said. You are now the owner of this inn. Michael took the contract and read through it with ChatJK3 making sure everything was solid. Thanks, Michael said. Before we leave, I have to relay a message to you, the royal said. Who is it from? Michael had an inkling as to who it was. The Duke. He wants to meet with the owner of the Reborn company at your own leisure. You need only to arrive in the castle gates and you will be welcomed with the utmost warmth. If you'd like, we can also send soldiers to escort you there. No need. I'll visit it when I can, he said, not committing on a promise. The royal didn't say anything further and respectfully nodded to Michael before leaving. He wants to meet with you this soon? Yuna asked, peeking out to look at the castle up in the distance. Usually, royals like him wouldn't show interest in the market. Something must have happened. What do you think I should do, my advisor? Michael said. Oh, so I'm your advisor now? You're the one who knows everything about the Queen's region. It's only natural I come to you for help. HPMH. I still haven't received my favorite ice cream from you. You think I'll help you now? She said, walking backwards away from Michael. I'm trying to find it. Fine, she chuckled. Since you helped out a lot of demi-humans today, I'll help you out free of charge. I think you should meet with the Magic Tower and the Knightly Court first before you meet the Duke. It gives you leverage to negotiate a better deal. You think the Duke wants to come to an agreement with me? It's the only reason why he would want to meet with the Reborn company. His seed had finally started to show fruit. Having the Dragonborns show off their mithril artifacts did wonders to spread its name and increase its value. Then this means I'll have to meet with Tracheus first. Hopefully, He'll allow me to access their magic library. Just then, Michael's shadow fluctuated a little bit before Fudge popped out of the ground. "Hello, Master and Miss Master." Fudge jumped directly to Yuna and received plenty of head pats. "How's the trip going?" "It's a bit boring, Master. It's so much cooler to walk around in our nation. But it's nice to have all the people look in my direction when I'm walking. They must think I'm such a cool ninja." Michael laughed. Fudge always seemed to forget that a ninja was supposed to be invisible. "Oh, Master, Bones Jr. said that he found someone talented. Or at least he thinks he thought so." Intrigued, Michael had Fudge lead him to where they were now via shadow teleportation. Michael ascended behind a crowd of spectators, all seemingly cheering for something in front of them. He looked around and saw that he was in a circular arena of some sorts, with a capacity of about 1,000 people. There were flags all around the arena, each one a different color and having a symbol or insignia of different weapons in the same style. Everyone cheered, pointing Michael to the main event of the arena, a fighting match between two well-armored individuals. "Woo! Go win this for me, Sir Buckus." "Ah, you think the way of the sword is better than the way of the spear. Keep dreaming. Sir Brand will win this like any other fight he had today." Two knights squared off inside the arena, each one emanating a strength of a 4-star fighter. This is the knightly court, Michael realized. This is the territory of the Order of the Heavenly Knights. And just as Grieve said, Michael did indeed catch wind of a talented individual somewhere inside the arena. Chapter 232, Red Mankey's Talent. Michael felt his superior golden nose ticking off, alerting him of talented individuals. Now, seeing as they were in the territory of the Order, it was more than possible that the talented individuals were the knights themselves. However, since they had already been awakened and became a knight, then it meant that if they had some sort of unknown talent, then it would be in a different category of skill. He would have wanted to find out more, but these knights were fighting in broad daylight. Having his shadow inhabit them for a brief inspection would definitely catch the eyes of some few sharp-eyed individuals, especially from the Order. "Bro Mike, you finally came." Zion pushed himself through the crowd in the bleachers to reach Michael and Fudge. The youngest Dragonborn seemed to have the time of his life, seeing as he was filled with knightly paraphernalia like patched hats and flags all around his clothes. He was accompanied by Grieve, who was completely draped in loose clothing in each crevice of his bones and a hood to cover his face, making sure that no one could discern his true nature. "The city here is not much different from the cities that I was familiar with back in my time. At least I think so. It seems that your territories are the only ones that have advanced much farther than anyone else," the skeleton general remarked. Michael then remembered that it was Grieve who sensed the talented individual first. "Can you tell me who you think is talented?" Grieve nodded and looked towards the arena. The two knights were deep in their fight, clashing their weapons with great fervor and passion. For experienced fighters, they immediately saw how the knights exaggerated their moves for the crowd. They clashed their swords more frequently than they avoided strikes, as if they just simply wanted to paint a picture of a more intense duel. After all, the crowds cheered whenever their blades sparked from each strike. But as the duel progressed, it became apparent that one of them was going to win. The knight with the spear held the advantage, parrying the other knight's strikes easily while keeping his distance. He used the spear's advantage quite well, and was able to put its tip just an inch above the other knight's neck. "I concede." The crowds erupted in cheers, with the spear knight brandishing his weapon for all to see. They cheered even harder, chanting his name even louder. Some even threw clothes, handkerchiefs, and flags towards him in an attempt to show their love for the fighter. "Are those knights talented in your eyes?" Michael asked Grieve. The undead skeleton kept his silence until the two knights left the arena and a few demi-humans came out. They wore simple clothing and wielded no sharp weapons, but wooden brushes and brooms. They began to sweep up all the things the crowd threw in order to prepare the arena for the next fighter. Michael was surprised to see these demi-humans here. Their striking red fur immediately caught his eye. They were Red Mankeys. "Those are elite soldiers," Grieve said, pointing his gloved hands towards the group of Red Mankey janitors. My memory is hazy, but I feel as if I have seen them before. I feel as if I had walked through hell, blood, and fire with their ancestors from before your time. At least, that's what my bones are telling me. Michael believed his general's intuition. After all, he did discover that red mankeys had a natural talent for physical arts. They were basically born for it. I think it would be best if you could get them under your wing, advised Grieve, with his bluish-green eyes flaring up for a brief moment. Michael went down the arena towards the barracks where the knights and the squires were chatting with each other. He even saw the spear and sword knight with them being treated with bandages. They seemed to be on a break, with their full metal armor unequipped and stored in boxes. "Excuse me, this is for knight personnel only," said one of the men as he chomped on a single bar of chocolate. Then, one of the knights on the back stood up and squinted as he looked at Michael's group. A second later, his eyes widened as he stared at Zion. "That's them," he yelled out. "They are from the Reborn company. He's the one who punched that apex jaguar into the wall." The rest of the knights perked up once they heard the name Reborn. Ever since the Tomb expedition, the knights in Angora City stamped the name of Reborn into their hearts. It was one thing to showcase their immense strength through defeating a 6-star undead monster, but it was a completely different matter that they turned out to be the one who created chocolate in the first place. Even now, their preferred snack to eat every day was Reborn chocolates. "Reborn, it's a pleasure to finally meet you. Sir John said that you guys have mithril artifacts. Is that true? I even heard that you guys came here with metal carriages that need no horse." Michael and his group were surrounded by the knights, gathering the attention of the crowd in the arena. "Hey, who is Sir Rupert talking to? Isn't that supposed to be a restricted area only for knights? Wait, I heard them talking about a company called Reborn. Anybody heard of it? They're the one who conquered the tomb." Meanwhile, Michael bribed the knights with some chocolate bars in exchange for more information about the red mankey janitors. "They're quite the earnest workers," the knight said, chewing chocolate cookies in his mouth. "They have weirdly strong bodies, which is perfect for janitorial jobs here in the court. Some of them even show talent in the ways. Unfortunately, even if they could swing a sword better than others, it's all useless if they can't wield any magic." It seemed these knights knew about the red mankey's natural talents. "Can I talk to them?" About a minute later, the knights gathered the red mankeys and gave them space to talk while they continued on with the fighting arena. "Hello, sir." Michael secretly used his shadows to inspect their talents. And as he expected, they all had latent fighting talents just waiting to be unburied. However, none of them had overwhelming talent like the Dragonborns, which was weird because he thought that he would meet at least one S-class talent from them. It was then that Michael noticed something. Back when he met the other red mankeys in Welcome's Inn, his superior golden nose skill also triggered. However, he found no one among them with transcendent talent. This was the same case. This couldn't be a coincidence. There must be a reason why his skill was getting triggered each time he met the red mankeys. Michael was in deep thought when he suddenly realized Grieve's words from earlier. "Those are elite soldiers," he said. "What if there was no transcendent individual talent within the red mankeys? What if they were all talented as one group, as one species? What if they only showed their true strength when they were in great numbers?" Chapter 233, Meeting the Knight. As Michael thought about it more and more, the idea seemed to become a lot more solid. He knew instinctively that his guess was right. These red mankeys were nothing like the Dragonborns, who each showed tremendous talents in dueling. Perhaps the red mankeys were a lot more suited for warfare, as soldiers who moved with 100 men simultaneously without missing a beat, as soldiers who rushed towards their enemy from one call from their general. It would make sense why the red mankeys would make such a great impression onto Grieve that he remembered them even from the grave. "Sir, are you from the Reborn company?" one of the red mankeys asked. "I am. Have you heard of us?" The red mankeys firmly nodded. "We have friends that told us what happened at the Welcomes Inn. We also want to join your nation." Michael was surprised that the news spread so fast. It only happened this morning. "This is great," he said. I was hoping to ask you if you want to join. The red mankeys were elated, their tails swinging back and forth like a dog. Can I ask if you have any more friends that want to join our nation? They all looked at each other awkwardly. We have our family. Back at home. In the village. This was exactly what Michael was looking for. He wanted more red mankeys to join him so that he could test out his theory about their collective strength as a group. The yellow mankeys already showed a version of this back at home. Michael noticed that a group of engineer hobmankeys working on one project together always seemed to create a faster end product than the other demi-human species. Michael thought it was just their camaraderie as mankeys, but maybe there was more to it than that, something a lot more innate within their species. I'm sorry, Sir Michael, but we don't know where the village is, the red mankeys dejectedly said. They explained that back in the days, once they left their village, they were forever exiled and banned from returning. Their village ensured this by kidnapping them in their sleep and tossing them out in the wilderness so that they wouldn't know their way back. That's what happened with their ancestors back in the day. And since their parents and their parents' parents were born here in Angora City outside of their village, then they could never truly know where they truly came from. But we hear that it's near Angora City. The red mankeys were sorry that they couldn't help Michael any further. Michael assured them that he was going to find them sooner or later. Nothing in the shadows can hide from me, assured Fudge. We'll find that village in no time. Michael told them to go to Welcome's Inn for now, and Shiina would be the one to take care of everything for them, whether they wanted to stay here or move to the nation of Reborn. Meanwhile, he was approached by a few young squires, who were eyeing him with amazement. Sir John would like to see you, mister. Since he was already here, and he had always planned to visit, Michael agreed and followed the squires deeper into their nightly court. No one was more excited for this than Fudge, who began discreetly placing his shadows everywhere so that he could spy on every knight inside. Michael had to warn the little ninja not to go overboard. I really wished I could spar with the knights, Zion said disappointingly. Ho ho, then I shall be your sparring partner later, replied Grieve. That quickly shut him up. Michael was the only one who appreciated the beauty of the knightly court. Everything here looked like it was ripped straight out of medieval England, with mossy stone walls and knights polishing their metal chest plates. The whole circular court was divided into many sections, each one dedicated to a specific weapon. The sword section, named the Way of the Sword, were full of knights training their squires how to properly hold a sword. Their barracks contained nothing but swords, having many different varieties that they could choose from. Beside them was the Way of the Spear, which seemed to harbor quite the rivalry with the Way of the Sword, as they began shouting teasing remarks at their rival for losing the games in the arena. Everyone he passed, whether they be soldiers, civilians, or even animals, gave him a passing glance and a polite nod when he walked through. It seemed that the rumor about the Reborn company had already spread here as well. The squires eventually led him towards the furthermost slice of the circular court containing the barracks of the Way of the Axe. There, he was welcomed by Sir John and the rest of the knights that saw him in the tomb. Michael, it's great that you decided to meet with us today, Sir John said, shaking Michael's hand. Then, he turned to Zion and offered his hand to him as well. And you, great sir, what is your name? Me, Zion said proudly. I am the great Zion. Sting like a butterfly, float like a bee. Then he turned to Grieve, who was completely covered, obscuring his entire being. I haven't met you before, but seeing as you are part of the Reborn company, I am sure that you possess great strength. Michael was glad that he made special mithril-laced clothes for Grieve that enhanced his stealth. He didn't know how he was going to explain how he turned the great General Grievous into one of his own allies. Let us talk inside. We have much to discuss. Sir John led Michael and the rest inside the barracks. They passed through the different rooms for the knights and squires before eventually ending up at the very end of the hallway, presumably Sir John's own office. Please come inside. There is someone very special waiting for you there, Sir John said. This meeting is far too important to be made by me alone. Instead, there is someone a lot more qualified to talk to you. Michael raised his eyebrow before looking past the door with his supreme skill. However, all he could see from the inside were a bunch of random mana. Although it was plenty and of immense intensity, Michael sensed no sign of life mana anywhere inside. Is it not a living being? Michael eventually opened the door and there, he saw in front of him, a large orc who had his back turned away from him. An orc? Michael asked. However, as he came closer, he then realized that this was no ordinary orc. That was because it wasn't a life form at all but instead a projection made entirely out of mana. I apologize for meeting you this way. I would have liked to look upon you face to face, but I am quite preoccupied with something and cannot bring my true form to meet you. The orc walked towards Michael, with the floorboards creaking under his feet, making him seem like a normal demi-human. Even other people wouldn't have known the difference. But he could. We haven't met yet, but I have heard a lot about you. I am Kruger, a heavenly knight. Chapter 234. Kruger. Kruger seemed no different than an ordinary orc. In fact, he looked even more normal than the Orcanine and the Orcupine orcs simply because they were a variant species of orcs. Meanwhile, Kruger was just a simple, ordinary orc with a huge stature and 2 tusks coming out of his lower mouth. The fact that he was simply a projection of mana made it seem like he was even more unimpressive. It didn't help the fact that he was wearing a simple training attire, with a plain white shirt and brown shorts. "You're a heavenly knight?" he asked. "In the flesh." "Well, actually not, haha. But, for all intents and purposes, I am a heavenly knight before you," Kruger said, with his hands behind his back looking scholarly and dignified. "As you might have noticed, I am a master of the way of the axe. Do you know anything about the ways?" Michael heard most of it from Yuna and Agnes, who were a little bit more knowledgeable on the fact, but it wouldn't hurt to hear it from a heavenly knight himself. In this current age, we have considered 10 different weapons as mastered arts in our field. In other words, a way is the field of mastery in which a knight takes in order to achieve heavenly status. Through hard work, talent, and a little bit of luck, I was able to achieve perfect mastery over the way of the axe, giving me the title of Heavenly Knight. There are 10 of us currently, each one a master of their own weapon. Michael saw pride in Kruger's eyes. He seemed confident and assured of himself that he was truly a master at his field. It made him wonder what he would see in terms of mana when he saw Kruger face to face. "Now that I have introduced myself, would you care to do it too?" Michael reciprocated and simply replied the truth. "I am the leader of the Reborn Company," he said plainly. "Ah yes, the Reborn Company. It has not been long since I have caught wind of its name, but I am already quite impressed with what you have achieved. They say your company has tremendous smithing skills that are almost equal to the dwarves. They say that your products are addictive and novel. They say that your company has established the Orcus town as your own, now known as Neo-Orcus. But perhaps the most impressive of which is the fact that you have both the Orcupine and the Orcanine tribe under your employ. I could hardly believe it when I heard it. Many of my orc comrades even deem it as a myth, especially since no one has ever confirmed the sightings of these orcs together. I would have asked you to confirm this yourself, but I know that sometimes one has to keep their hands in the dark. So all I have to say to that is thank you. I am deeply grateful that you were able to save my brethren from their own folly." Michael shrugged. "They just needed to hash things out," he said. Kruger laughed, knowing the difficulty in getting those 2 orc tribes to work together. "Either way, your arrival here in the Queen's region has driven quite a splash. I am sure that there are many players in the field that are quite surprised at your arrival. You have single-handedly thrown all their plans out the window." Kruger walked around the room as he talked, eventually stopping at the window overlooking the main court, with knights and squires training with strangers in their midst. There was a dragon-like creature, a hooded figure, and a violet slime, talking and mingling with the knights with merry joy. Usually, those spear knights dislike talking with people they do not know, but they seem to be quite happy with chocolate bars in their hands. "But let us get to the bottom of why I have requested to meet with you. Your friends down below. Even while I am a projection, I could see that they are brimming to the top with talent. It is quite rare to see a collection of them under one banner, and in such an early stage of their career. They have proven themselves in the tomb, fighting a 6-star Apex Jaguar and defeating it quite handily. But of course, not without the help of those certain weapons, mithril relics. Of course, Michael knew that this would happen. He just didn't expect that he would lure such a big shot so soon. Kruger wanted to meet Michael to discuss these very weapons. "What do you want to know about them?" he asked Kruger. The Heavenly Knight Orc looked back at Michael, surprised that he would admit it so easily. "So it is true? There's no point in hiding it," he replied. "You do know that these are weapons of great power, once thought to be erased from the annals of time. Even our order spent great resources and time gathering bits and pieces of mithril relics. How were you even able to procure such a large amount for your allies?" "I made them," he replied. Kruger's projection momentarily shimmered as his mental state was disturbed for a moment. A heavenly knight such as himself should have achieved inner peace, allowing him to stay unperturbed even in the most surprising of events. Yet, this single piece of news, so casually revealed to him by Michael, made him so unstable that his projection almost disappeared. "Is this true? How is that even possible? Even the dwarves have lost the method of their creation." Michael shrugged once again. "Not anymore. Long story short, I was able to figure out the method myself with their help. Now, our nations are working together to create more." Kruger had to sit down on the chair to center himself, lest he lose control of his projection again. You are quite the dangerous man. This is the first I've even heard of the dwarves allying with a human." Michael reached into his pocket to reveal a simple mithril artifact piece. It was one of the test pieces he had when he first started making them. It looked like an ordinary crystal, transparent, and with a small red light coming off of its center. "That is the real deal," Kruger said, making his way towards Michael. His eyes couldn't leave the mithril piece, as if it was glued to it. His curiosity eventually got the better of him, and he reached out to the artifact. However, his hands just passed through the mithril piece. Regret filled his face. He wished he had taken the time to meet with Michael face to face right now. If he did, then he would have been able to touch upon the mithril artifact with his own hands. "Are you not afraid that such a treasure of yours will attract bad intentions?" Michael simply snapped his fingers, with the fire mana leaving the mithril artifact and dissipating into the air. The transparent crystal eventually lost the red light inside its core, leaving it desolate. With no mana inside, the mithril artifact turned ashy white, before eventually turning into a crumpled piece of metal even more fragile than paper. Chapter 235 Scrolls. Kruger looked at Michael, his eyes flashing as he began to realize the power this 11-year-old boy held in his hands. "So, you are the only one who could produce mithril artifacts, and you are the only one who can distribute it. I was right. You are quite the dangerous character." With complete monopoly over the greatest weapons in existence, Michael was perhaps the most sought-after man in the entire world. The world just didn't know it yet. "What do you plan on doing with your mithril artifacts? Are you planning on selling it?" Kruger asked with an inquisitive tone. It was clear what he was trying to convey to Michael. Kruger wanted them too. "For now, I can only release a limited supply," Michael said. "But the price for my artifacts is not something that I want to sell for money." Kruger nodded, completely understanding Michael's stance. "From what I hear, your company is doing quite well in Angora City. Chocolate pastries and armors. Quite a strange combination, but it has been able to gather quite the reputation for being money magnets. I am sure you have no trouble with gold. So what do you want for mithril artifacts? Knights under your control? Influence on the order? Scrolls of forbidden physical art spells?" Michael smiled. "Friendship," he said. "Friendship," Kruger repeated. For a second, his face contorted into one of confusion as he tried to discern the hidden meaning behind that word. Was that a weapon name? Was that a territory? But when he looked at Michael and saw the look of sincerity on his face, Kruger realized that the request was genuine. "Ha ha 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 ha." He then burst out in laughter, with his voice echoing down the court and surprising a few knights and squires in training. "You are quite the greedy little fellow, aren't you? You don't want one thing. You want everything." Kruger said, staring at Michael. I just believe in the philosophy of helping each other out. You scratch my back, I scratch yours. There's no need for pricing. If you need something, I will gladly give it to you. And if eventually I need your help, I hope that you can lend me a hand. In short, I want to be friends just like how I'm friends with the Dragonborns, the Rebornians, and the Dwarves. Let's all help each other out. Kruger couldn't wipe the smile off his face. By basing their relationship, not through contracts and business deals, Michael was guaranteeing a long-time partnership with him, one of the only 10 heavenly knights in the entire world. If it was any other human, Kruger would have been wary that he was being taken advantage of. His influence as a heavenly knight was universal, only below that of the rulers like the Ocean King and the Draconic Queen. But Kruger felt Michael's genuinity. He walked over to Michael and reached for his hand. All right, I accept your friendship, Kruger said with a big smile. Michael reached for his hand as well, using his supreme skill to manipulate the mana in the projection to have a solid handshake with the heavenly knight. After the meeting ended with Kruger, Michael left the room and was immediately met by Sir John, who had a permanent surprised expression painted on his face. What happened back there? I just received word that you are allowed full access to our dungeons. Before leaving the meeting, Michael asked Kruger if he could take a peek into the court's physical art spells. He didn't forget his original goal in going to this place. This was the perfect time to catch up. All the spells that ChatJK3 knew were full of mystical art spells, which was of no help in training the Dragonborns and the other fighters in the nation of Reborn. Although Grieve was there to teach them about fighting, the undead skeleton was quite forgetful of normal, basic spells. By gaining access to the bulk knowledge used by the knights to train their own people, Michael would be able to finally impart that knowledge onto the Rebornians. Michael was eventually led down into the spiraling tower case down into their dungeon. Sir John gave him a small tour showing all the equipment they stored as a backup. In these small caves, kind of like an underground prison, there were plenty of weapons and armors haphazardly stacked up to the very ceiling. Eventually, he was led into the very end of the room. And before he even entered, he already smelled the scent of old books wafting over from the room. And when he finally entered, he saw shelves filled with scrolls made out of papyrus papers. Each one was magnificently preserved and categorized based on their contents. Just like the court, the whole library was circular, with each slice showcasing the different physical art spells for the different weapon masteries. Is there any particular spell you would like to learn? I can help you with it, said Sir John. There's no need. I'll learn them all. Michael walked to the nearest shelves and picked up one of the scrolls near his eye line. It was a simple 3-star spell specializing in the sword called South Wind of Cuts. When he unfurled the scroll, he saw a magic circle filled with the magic theory surrounding the very spell. Normal knights would take months to master such a spell. Sir John, expecting Michael to be completely absorbed in studying the scroll, eventually left the room and walked back up to the court. Michael looked around the circular library and began to use his supreme skill to make contact with the subtle mana imprinted into the very ink of the scrolls. These written knowledge were not just simply inked down, it was imbued with mana from an experienced user, allowing them to put their insights and learnings into the paper itself. And once that teachings have been passed on over to another person, the magic would cease to exist. This was the reason why scrolls were expensive. But of course, Michael didn't need any of that at all. He simply just needed ChatJK3 to scan all the magic theory in the room and copy it for himself. So, he began manipulating all the mana in the room, with the scrolls levitating from out of their shelves and unfurling themselves right in front of Michael. With mana in the ink, his personal AI assistant was able to see all of the knowledge and analyze them to the maximum degree. Progress to next update, 20.23%. Progress to next update, 27.73%. Progress to next update, 39.26%. With each scroll, Michael's progress to the update began increasing. In a matter of a few seconds, Michael was able to copy the magic theory upon tens of thousands of physical art spells. The knowledge washed over his mind, bringing him the acuity to perform these spells adequately. Michael thirsted for more, with his speed of consumption becoming faster and faster. Progress to next update, 49.99%. Progress to next update, 50%. Congratulations. You were able to achieve basic mastery over physical art spells. System is currently going on an update. Complete. Hello, Michael. I am ChatJK 3.5, and I am your personal AI assistant. Chapter 236. Snooping on hooded figures. Michael felt even more attuned to his own body. Every fiber of his muscles were intertwined with unity mana, allowing him full control over his own mobility. His bodily coordination shot through the roof. I have successfully integrated all the physical arts knowledge in the 13,532 scrolls and adjusted your mana gathering technique accordingly. It is now 83% more efficient, allowing you to exert more power with less effort. Is that why my body feels so good? The leftover consciousness from each scroll gave deepful insight into the mind of masters. All those knowledge are now stored into your body, whether you actively know it or not. In other words, Michael's muscle memory was probably even better than that of the Dragonborns, which was quite unfair for them since they were the ones who had been working hard to train. Meanwhile, all he had to do was read 10,000 scrolls, and he was able to perfectly acclimate his body into the perfect vessel for physical art skill. Michael did find it to be a bit of a letdown that he wasn't able to improve ChatJK 3 to the next software. All he got was a half-step upgrade, which was good, but not better than he hoped. The capacity needed for the software to upgrade increases with each reform. The scrolls contain only basic information about physicality, which transformed your body into an athlete, but wasn't able to transform your mind into the next level. I knew that, he said to ChatJK 3.5. Thankfully, there's a lot of other knightly courts here in the Queen's region that I would someday be able to visit. For now, Michael had to be content with the fact that he had a modicum of master over physical art spells. Just like last time, he was now able to completely create a new skill from pure imagination. He could compose 5-star and below physical art spells in a matter of seconds. This would serve well with the Dragonborns and the Rebornians who severely needed a lot more firepower in their repertoire of skills. With nothing left for him here, he walked back up to the main court, where Sir John was caught unprepared for his arrival. You were only gone for half a candle. I'm sorry. Did you not get what you were looking for? Michael shook his head. I was able to learn it. I just need more, he said. Of course, Sir John couldn't have possibly known that Michael learned every single scroll in their dungeon. Nor would he even think that it was possible at all. Did you see where my friends went? Zion and the others completely went off on their own while he talked with Kruger, so Michael had no idea where they were now. I did see them go with the other knights earlier. I think they went back up to the arena, Sir John said. Knowing those three, Michael was sure that they were up to no good. You guys have healers here, right? He asked only because he was sure that Zion wouldn't be able to hold off his excitement and end up hurting one of the knights. Why? Sir John asked. I think they went to pick a fight with the knights. You guys have healers here, right? If it was any other person, Sir John would have scoffed at the question. But since he saw what those Dragonborns were capable of with his own eyes, he knew that there could be trouble brewing. I'll get the bandages, Sir John said worryingly. As Sir John scurried off to warn the knights about the monstrous genius called Zion, Michael was left all alone. He was going to go to the arena, but all of a sudden, he saw the shadow of the walls morph and change in front of him, before two shadow orcs emerged. It was Naruto and Sasuke, the two leaders of the Orcanines and the Orcupines. Is something the matter? We have observed an important conversation taking place, so we decided that it was best to report directly to you, said Naruto, bumping his chest as a sign of respect. Important conversation? Michael asked, intrigued. He transported himself and the orcs back to a more private location. We have spread our forces everywhere in and around the city. There is no corner in which we do not have our ears on them. Usually, we hear plenty of nonsensical chatter spreading around that we ignore. But in matters of the Reborn company, we are always fully alert, said Sasuke, with the quills on his back shaking to produce a shrill sound. Ever since the tomb incident, there is one particular group that has caught our attention, the Hammerstone Company. We have disturbed their plans for improving their ranking in the Golden 500, and they are not too happy about it. Competition always brings some sort of friction. That was natural. He even heard that the Hammerstone Group was a sub-company of the Hephaestus Company, one of the largest conglomerates in the world, just like his grandfather's business. What did you find out? Nothing as of yet, Boss Michael. It's happening as we speak. Michael looked back at the shadow orcs, with an idea forming in his head. Meanwhile, at the very center of Angora City, in the heart of the business district of the capital, was the headquarters of the Hammerstone Group. Their armory was the premier store for everything made out of metal. Every group, company, or guild needed armors and weapons for their security. And they were the ones to get it from. At least, that was before a mysterious group came out of the jungle and showed off their new armor and weapon sets, completely setting a new standard in the city. They were slowly losing control of the flow of armor and weapons everywhere. In response, the Hammerstone Company only had one choice left to do. They had to ask help from their parent company, the Hephaestus Group. Every Hammerstone employee welcomed their arrival on this very day. Butch, the leader of the company's adventurers, made sure everything was perfect. After all, these visitors coming from far away were from the main Hephaestus Company itself. The double doors opened as 5 individuals stepped foot into their building. Maids and butlers laid out a red carpet for their arrival, but they didn't seem to care that much at all and continued to walk forward. "I sincerely welcome you to our building." Butch's words tapered off as the fire-hooded figures continued to walk past him, completely ignoring his attempt at establishing relations. "There is no need for pleasantries. We are here for one thing only: establish dominance." One of the hooded figures picked up a sword from their large collection and bent its blade with no force required. "Do you know why your company is losing revenue?" the hooded figure asked. "It's because they are losing faith. They don't believe that the Hammerstone Company is strong enough to deliver the best equipment." Butch lowered his head. "What shall we do?" "You shall do nothing but continue to improve the quality of the swords and armors you make. That should be easy enough, seeing that you are all a part of the Hephaestus Company. But we have a different job. We shall show that our strength is even better than the knights and the wizards. That is how we build trust." Meanwhile, in the shadows flickering in the chandeliers, there were 3 figures lurking above. It was Michael and the 2 orcs. Chapter 237. Stone Cold. From an outsider's perspective, Michael's entire body was as natural as the paint on the wall. If they looked directly at him, they would notice nothing and simply thought that he was part of the wooden ceilings up above. His mastery over mana allowed him to be completely devoid of it as well. There was no light mana emanating from his body, mistaking him as a non-living being, as an object. Of course, he could have just used the orc's shadow skill to obscure himself, but he thought that this was a better stealth option overall. "We have arrived here to solve the situation. And solve it we will," said the hooded figure. Thanks to Naruto and Sasuke's timely report, Michael was able to witness the arrival of the hooded figures in the city. "Any idea who they are?" he asked the orcs, using the 2-star spell of variable sound to transform the waves of his voice into a straight line that directly transmitted the sound to their ears without any leakage. "Rumor has it that they are part of an elite task force from the Hephaestus Company trained to be elite soldiers," Naruto replied, showing Michael the written reports of his orc subordinates. Instead of sending a blacksmith, they sent out soldiers instead. This told Michael one thing. They planned to use strength to showcase their dominance, especially after their failure in the Tomb campaign. He heard from Fudge that Butch's main goal during that time was to be the first one to conquer the Tomb, which would gain them a lot of reputation within Angora City. But with their failure, they lost some of that reputation, which directly led to their sales plummeting down. And now, the Hephaestus Company sent down elite soldiers to remedy this failure. The owner of the Hammerstone Company is quite disappointed. He fully expected you to be able to reach rank number 494 this month around. But it seems it's more likely we get rank number 496 instead. Butch bowed his head, ashamed. "I wish to convey my deepest apologies to the owner. As a direct descendant of Hephaestus, he deserves only the best of the best. This failure is mine." The hooded figure nodded, accepting Butch's apology. But not to worry. We shall solve this problem in a matter of a few days, or else we would not have been called the Stone Cold Six. The rest of the Hammerstone employees hid their gasps at the revelation of their name. Their reputation as fearsome warriors triumphed even that of the Knights of the Order. Rumor has it that they could even defeat those that were 1 star higher than their own level. Soon, hopeful smiles flashed across the faces of every Hammerstone employee. With the appearance of the Stone Cold Six, Angora City would hopefully see the strength in their company again. Michael noticed that there were only 5 of them here in this room, meaning there was one missing. "I have already sent out one of our own to fulfill the first mission," said the hooded figure. "Establishing dominance in the knightly court. Stone Cold Six will bring triumph against the knights, that you can be sure." Michael nodded to the 2 orcs in front of him. They heard everything they needed to hear. They sunk back down to their shadows and disappeared, with no one the wiser. Meanwhile, back in the knightly court, the friendly competition between the different knight factions were routinely going on their way. The Way of the Spear, the winner of the previous fight against the Sword Knight, was now the reigning champion within the court. He raised the green flag with the insignia of a spear stitched on the front, with the crowd cheering him on for his dominance. However, before he could be crowned as the winner of this competition, there was just one faction left remaining. It was the Way of the Axe, led by none other than Sir John. They were the true reigning champs of this competition. Sir John, specifically, had been quite the tough opponent to beat. It was even more apparent as the 2 knights fought. Sir John's axe was as heavy as a mountain, yet his swings were so fast as if he was wielding a rapier instead. It didn't take long before he won and became the champion of the competition. But just as Sir John was supposed to raise his flag in victory, someone from the crowd suddenly threw a cold blue glove towards the arena, landing just in front of him. Sir John eyed the glove and then looked towards the crowd. He knew what this meant. It was a formal challenge. "I humbly ask for your teachings," a hooded figure asked. As a proud knight, Sir John never shied away from a fight. He swore an oath to always honor a challenge. "Very well," Sir John said, scrutinizing the hooded figure. "But I will not hold back my strength, even for someone that is 1 star below my level." Even at a distance, Sir John was able to discern that his challenger was only a 4-star realm fighter. "It's only fair," the hooded figure smiled. Then, he jumped onto the arena, taking off his hooded robe all in one move. He revealed himself to be a bald, manly figure encased in intricate icy blue armor. His muscles bulged perfectly in the metal, as if it was molded specifically for his body. The number 5 was stamped on his back armor. "What do I call you?" Sir John asked. "You can call me 5, the bald man replied. The crowd cheered in an uproar. The sudden appearance of this new challenger excited them to no end. Just from his armor alone, they knew that this would be an extremely entertaining fight. "Whoa! Look at his armor. Isn't that the emblem of the Hammerstone Company? Oh yeah, it's stamped on his chest." Soon, everyone knew that this new challenger was adorned with a full Hammerstone armor set. Only the result of the duel would tell if the armor could withstand the heavy cleaving strikes of the famous Sir John. Meanwhile, Zion, Grieve, and Fudge finally returned to the arena after exploring every single barracks in the court. They became quite preoccupied with stuff since Fudge insisted on visiting every corner of the court so that he could spread his clones everywhere. "Ah, look, Fudge. You made us miss the fight," Zion said, his shoulders sagging in disappointment. "It's not my fault," Fudge said. As the 2 kept arguing, Grieve walked forward and looked through the crowd. Eventually, he saw a strange sight. Everyone in the crowd was silent, as if they couldn't believe what they were seeing. Grieve looked down and saw Sir John on the ground, with his axe split in half. He was panting while looking up at a figure in front of him. "He lost," Grieve uttered. Zion and Fudge eventually caught up and saw the scene for themselves. "Huh? How could Bro John lose?" Zion asked. Just then, the figure who won the fight suddenly faced the crowd. "This is dominance. We are the best fighters in all of Angora City. Hammerstone Group will prevail, and no other company is better than us. Zion was triggered by those words. He was about to jump in, when all of a sudden, he felt a tap on his shoulder. He looked behind and saw Michael. "Before you go, I have a few gifts to give you," Michael said with a smile, raising his hand to bestow some new skills for Zion.
Chapter 238. Duel, Reborn v Hammerstone.
With ChatJK 3.5's mastery over physical art spells, Michael was able to whip up new skills customized specifically for Zion's talents. Information washed over to the young Dragonborn's head, giving him the magic theory required to turn his innate movements into something that was bathed in mana. He figured out how to draw deep from his unity cores and spread it to a specific muscle group with the right amount of force and quantity to release the maximum amount of power required. After the transfer was over, Zion's eyes glinted in understanding. "What do you think?" Michael asked. "Thank you, bro Mike. These are so good." Zion excitedly punched the air, a crisp whipping sound echoing in the arena. This small preview of strength was enough to catch the attention of the reigning champ below. The warrior named Five looked up at the bleachers and squinted as he looked at Zion, scrutinizing the Dragonborn. "Hey bro, can I play next?" he asked Five, jumping down the steps to stand on top of the wooden railings. The bald man's eyes showed confusion as he felt the points of power within Zion to be lower than his. And upon using a monocle that determined a person's cultivation strength, Five realized that the Dragonborn was only at the 3-star realm. Was that just a fluke? Five muttered under his breath. For a brief second, he felt an explosion of mana from. "Did you hear me, bro?" Zion asked, cupping his mouth outwards with his hands. "You wish to challenge me? I am willing to accept, but are you sure?" The crowd that was so silent once again erupted in hushed whispers. They had seen how dominant Five was against even one of the best knights in the entire city. Sir John was of no match to him. It took less than a minute for the renowned 5-star knight to completely lose control of his own weapon. Somehow, Five was able to completely overpower even the tremendous force of the axe and split it in half. This was a feat that silenced all knight supporters. Even though Five was only in the 4-star realm, he was able to beat someone 1 star higher than his own cultivation. And now, Zion wanted to challenge Five while being 1 star lower than him. "Let's fight. You look fun," Zion said as he jumped down onto the arena, with dust particles exploding beneath his feet. Sir John, who was being carried away by his fellow knights, only had one thing to say to him. "Be careful," he said. Sir John had completely underestimated his opponent, leading to his humiliating loss. One of the greatest sins that a knight could commit was losing their weapon in battle. His mastery over the way of the axe should have prevented this from happening at all. Yet it did. His weapons and armors are top-notch. "It's not the kind of thing that is produced here," he warned Zion. Of course, if he knew that Five was part of an elite task force called the Stone Cold Six directly from one of the biggest conglomerates in the world, then he would completely understand why his weapon was unable to survive. "No worries. It's just a fun little fight," Zion said, rotating his shoulders in preparation. It was as if he didn't even hear Sir John's warning in the first place. And why would he? His face showed no sign of worries that his weapons and armors would be destroyed like the others. It was made from Reborn. There was no better equipment to be had. Meanwhile, Five scrutinized Zion's face and swung his spear in the air. Blue frost permeated the weapon, with mist evaporating in the air. You are from the Reborn company, are you not?" Five said, pointing the tip at Zion. Of course, the guy did his research. It would be stupid of him to not know the very reason for their failure in the first place. "Yeah, I am," Zion announced proudly, with Fudge cheering him on from the bleachers. The rest of the crowd began whispering to each other once again. Not a lot have heard about the Reborn company and only knew their involvement in chocolates. So, a lot of them were surprised when rumors began to spread about the Rebornians' exploits in the tomb. "What? They're the one who conquered that discovery." "Yeah, and you know what I heard as well? They said that the Reborn guys were able to hold their own against the Knights and the Hammerstone group. That's how they emerged victorious in the tomb. I heard they used special weapons too." Like, real rare stuff. Wow, I should visit their armory then. 5 bit his lips as he heard the discussion around them. Even though he put on a dominant show of force against the knights, somehow, the Reborn company was still able to steal it away from them. 5 then spread his arms and looked at the ground. Listen here, every one of you. This is going to be a duel not only for ourselves, but for the company that we represent. Then he pointed his spear at Zion. Whoever shall win this battle will revel in the admiration and respect of every single person in attendance. And whoever loses will have to admit here, in the presence of everyone, that their company is the inferior of the two. A fire lit up in Zion's eyes. He looked back up at the stands and saw Michael and the rest of his friends looking over at him with a smile. Kick his ass. Fudge cheered. A good old-fashioned duel. Ho ho. I may not remember much, but I do know the triumphant feeling of, as Senior Fudge would say, kicking someone's ass. I would like to see it again. Even Grieve was pumped up. Go have fun, Michael said to him with a thumbs up. That was the only permission Zion needed. He looked back at 5 and gave him a thumbs up, before turning it into a thumbs down. Let's fight. 5 immediately rushed to Zion, with dust exploding out from behind him. His spear was pointed directly at the young Dragonborn's unarmored chest. Zion punched the air, with the force transferring into the air like a wave and reaching 5's body at the speed of sound. With a single slice of the spear, 5 disrupted the punch's power before rushing forward with the tip towards Zion. The young Dragonborn skipped in place like a boxer, moving left and right rhythmically before dodging out of the spear headed towards his chest. When his thrust missed, 5 swung his spear to try and reach Zion. But he was able to duck away at the last second, countering with an uppercut aimed towards the chin. 5 stepped back, using the bottom of his spear as leverage, with Zoin's punch creating a huge shockwave up to the air, but hitting nothing else. The crowd stood up, surprised at the electric fight they were witnessing today. Zion smiled and looked at his opponent. He was just getting started. He charged towards 5, punching with a left jab. 5 parried the punch with his spear, but that wasn't the end of Zion's attack. It was a 1-2 punch. Zion's immense speed and power left 5 completely vulnerable as the Dragonborn landed a heavy punch to the liver. Chapter 239. Zion's Punches. Zion's space-breaking punch sent 5 shooting towards the wall. Everything happened so fast that the only thing that the audience could see was a blur before 5 crashed into the wall, creating a reverberation in the arena and dust flying everywhere. The crowd got up their feet and tried to look beyond the cloud of dust to see if the fight was over. But as dirt settled, they saw 5 standing perfectly still, with his cold blue armor perfectly preserved. There was no dent or scratch on his body. Even the smile on his face was enough evidence for everyone to know that Zion's punch was not able to do any significant damage to the bald man. Whoa! Who is that demi-human? His punches are insane. But it's even more impressive that 5 is able to take that punch head-on without even feeling anything. That armor must be amazing. I never knew Hammerstone could create such an amazing craft. 5 smiled as he heard the compliments to his armor. This was precisely the reason why he let himself be hit. You were a good comparison for my armor. Now they know where to buy theirs if they want something good, he said to Zion. Sorry, but I'll have to finish this fight. A cold blue aura emanated from 5's body as air and water mana to combine into an icy spell in his body. Hephaestus Frosty Wind. 5 screamed out, empowering the tip of his spear with a 4-star ice power. The crowd gasped, as they saw that even the dust underneath his feet began to frost. 5 lunged towards Zion, thrusting his cold-tipped spear to his chest. Zion sidestepped away at the very last second before a sharp icicle extended from the tipped spear and easily pierced through the wall behind the young Dragonborn. The bald man continued to swing his spear towards Zion. Unlike last time, each of his swings released a burst of powerful 4-star icicles that could pierce through even the toughest of steel armor. With each spear attack, Zion was forced to step back more and more. Winter Wonderland. 5 cried out as his legs began to turn completely icy blue. It was as if his whole leg was frozen into an iceberg. with the power manifested into his legs. 5 stomped on the ground, spreading frost and ice outwards. "You can't keep running away forever," 5 taunted as he stepped forward and swung his spear at Zion. The ground beneath Zion's feet turned into a slippery ice terrain just before the cold-tipped spear arced towards him from above. 5 hoped that this would disorient the young dragonborn and prevent him from stepping away in time from his spear attack. Yet, he seemed to have underestimated his power. Zion simply punched the air, creating a shockwave that was enough to deflect the spear's trajectory, allowing the icicle to just slip past his ears. He then used a 1-2 punch beneath his feet, the shockwave creating a cracked crater on the ground, effectively destroying the flat terrain that made the ice become so slippery in the first place. "Too late!" 5 screamed out as he thrusted his spear towards Zion. Iced encasement. A blue ball of energy launched from the tip, freezing anything unfortunate enough to be caught in its trajectory. The frozen sphere of energy crashed upon contact, creating an iceberg that encased the young dragonborn. At least it should have. 5's eyes widened as he saw the icicle start to melt just as fast as it was created. Mist and steam erupted from the iceberg because of how fast it was disintegrating. What? How? Zion emerged from the iceberg completely unharmed. 5 thought that he would at least incur frostbite from being hit by a 4-star spell's direct impact. But then, he noticed that the iceberg never encased Zion at all. There seemed to be an invisible spherical barrier that prevented the spell from reaching the dragonborn scales. It was what also melted the ice so quickly. "Ah! I wanted to win without using the Unity defense," Zion said, disappointed at himself. In fact, he was the only one upset at himself. Everyone could see that he, a 3-star realm fighter, was able to withstand the full frontal attack of a 4-star spell. He even came out of it unscathed. That was supposed to be impossible. "Well, whatever," Zion shrugged. "I guess I have to use my real skills now." Zion took out a single piece of chocolate bar from his pockets and raised it in the air. He released it in his mouth and swallowed it whole. Then, an explosion of power and aura permeated the arena. Even civilians who had no idea about cultivation felt the immense spike in power from Zion. 5 stood in the arena, with his face completely contorted into confusion. He slowly took out a monocle from his pockets and placed it on his eye before staring directly at Zion. There, he saw 4 points of light in his abdomen. He was in the 4-star realm. This is impossible," he cried out. Even the best cultivation pills found in the market couldn't have possibly created such a drastic change in power. This was the power of superior sugar rush. Consumption of chocolate immediately boosted his power by 1-star realm. "Are you ready?" Zion asked. "Try and hit me." The young dragonborn rushed towards the flustered 5. But immediately after sensing danger, the bald man sobered up and took his spear in self-defense. 5 thrusted his spear 20 times in a matter of a second, leaving no chance for Zion to come close to him. If he tried, then icicles would pierce through his body. But Zion still pressed through. He put both of his hands on his chin and ducked downwards before weaving left and right as he moved towards the barrage of spear thrusts. "Dempsey roll," he whispered. Zion's body began to blur, making it seem like there were after images beside him. Seeing this chance, 5 pierced his spear directly towards Zion. The dragonborn didn't even try to duck away. But surprisingly enough, 5's spear passed right through Zion's head. It was as if he pierced through only a mirage. Panicked, 5 increased the intensity of his spear thrusts while stepping backwards. Ice particles began to shimmer in the air, but none of them were able to touch a single scale on Zion's body. The young dragonborn continued to weave left and right, completely dodging every spear that came his way. How? 5 was now face to face with Zion, with the advantage of his long spear already long gone. In a last-ditch attempt, 5 encased his entire spear with sharp icicles growing out of the shaft and swung it towards Zion. But Zion just ducked under it quite easily. And while squatting down, Zion began to gather up all the power inside his right fist. Unity mana, powered by the sugar rush, began to course through his veins and give him tremendous power. Zion looked up at 5 and saw a panicked expression on his face. He smiled and prepared his finishing move. Gazelle Punch. Zion burst upwards with an uppercut, hitting 5 squarely on his stomach and sending him flying outwards. Chapter 240 Reborn Victory. 5 was sent crashing into the wall, creating a large dust explosion that covered everything down below. The audience got up off their seats once again and waited until the dust settled. A few seconds later, they saw him, and unlike last time, 5 was not able to brush off Zion's attack like it was nothing. He laid down on the floor, groaning and crying in pain as he held his stomach. "Ha, that was so fun," Zion said, shuffling his feet, ready to go another round. "Guh, ha, impossible," he muttered, grasping at the dust on the ground. The audience looked at Zion and shouted to the top of their lungs, cheering at his dominant display of power. Whoa! He just defeated a 4-star fighter. How did he become so powerful all of a sudden? Did you see what he ate? Wasn't that chocolate? So it's true that if you eat chocolate, you become a lot stronger. I'll have to buy a whole crate today. That's not all. He was able to defend against the frost of the other guy because of some strange invisible shield he had. Do you think that it's from one of their armors? Hey, let's visit their armory later. It was a clear display of dominance. Zion showed a powerful burst of strength, as well as an enduring defense that could take even the power of a 4-star ice fighter. Yeah, I knew my junior would win, Fudge screamed. Serves him right. Excellent display of fighting skills, Grieve commented. Zion reveled in the applause, taking in all the cheers and claps coming his way. He performed a few light jabs for the audience, which seemed to have riled them up even further. But unbeknownst to the audience, 5 was not yet done. He secretly took out a white pill from his pockets and chewed on it with his teeth. The pill broke into a powdery mess, which was instantly absorbed into his body. Whatever he ate seemed to have contained copious amounts of mana as his body began to go wild. The new supply of this energy allowed his body to temporarily fix the 8 broken ribs in his chest and fix all the internal injuries he sustained from Zion's Gazelle Punch. However, the side effects of this consumption seemed to have reddened his eyes and made his face twitch uncontrollably. Whoa! Watch out! Suddenly, 5 burst out towards Zion with renewed strength. However, the Dragonborn swiftly turned around and faced his opponent once again. Only now did the other people notice that Zion suddenly wielded black gauntlets with violet cracks all over it. The appearance of this weapon took away everyone's attention. They couldn't seem to stop looking at it. Unfortunately for them, Zion raised his gauntlets and performed a straight jab with his right hand, meeting with the tip of 5's spear. The two weapons collided, creating sparks in the middle of the arena. Magically adept people then began to notice an unusually strong amount of multi-elemental mana bursting out of Zion's gauntlets. It was so powerful, in fact, that it began to overpower the renewed vigor of 5's attacks. Cool! If it weren't for the pill 5 consumed, he would have immediately recognized the power hidden within Zion's gauntlets and knew the eventual result of crossing weapons with him. But his newfound power messed with his logical reasoning. The gauntlets exploded in power, pushing the tip of the spear backwards. The force was enough to bend the shaft unnaturally, before it became too much and splintered into 1,000 pieces. But that wasn't the end of that. Zion's gauntlet followed through and eventually reached 5 square in his chest. The bald man's icy blue armor began to permeate with frost, trying to fight the power of unity from the gauntlets. 5's face crumpled as he tried to stubbornly withstand the force of the punch. But eventually, the ice in his armor began to melt. The water and air mana being supplied to the chestplate was counteracted by the fire and earth mana present in the unity-powered gauntlet. The icy blue armor that imitated the long-withstanding and eternal icebergs of the Arctic released a final burst of energy before losing all its color and power. The metal chestplate crumpled from Zion's punch, completely destroying the armor and leaving it no good for anything but scraps. 5 looked at his own armor with disbelief, his red eyes not enough to convey his grief and frustration. It was only now that he looked up at Zion and realized that he lost. "You win," Five muttered with the last of his strength. He collapsed on the floor, ending the fight entirely. The crowd was silent for a second, before erupting in an even bigger applause. They began throwing all sorts of congratulatory gifts towards Zion. The young Dragonborn looked at all the towels, flags, and handkerchiefs before raising his hand in triumph. "I am a Rebornian," he proclaimed, and with his words, the audience began to chant Reborn in honor of his win against Five. Isn't hammerstone armor supposed to be stronger than that? That demi-human completely destroyed that guy's armor. We gotta talk about his gauntlets. What kind of power was that? It felt like it could even destroy a mountain. Reborn, Reborn, Reborn. I'm gonna be a fan of their products from now on. I want to have their chocolates and armor. Even the knights from the court began to congratulate the young Dragonborn. He was able to successfully restore their honor by beating Five so badly that even his armor was destroyed. Meanwhile, Michael clapped for Zion from the stands as well. Seeing the power of customized physical art skills really solidified the importance of this new upgrade for ChatJK 3.5. He wasn't even sure that the Dempsey roll and Gazelle Punch skills would work because it was something he only saw in his previous life, but his personal AI assistant was able to convert those normal moves into something powered by mana. There were plenty of other moves Michael could borrow from his life on modern Earth, some of which would fit perfectly for the other Dragonborns. Speaking of whom, Michael's shadow contorted in front of him as Shina's voice echoed from the other side. "Lord Michael, I heard my little brother's having a lot of fun." Michael scratched his head awkwardly. "Ah, yeah. It's just a little experiment." "Ahem. I would like to remind you, Lord Michael, that it is customary for elder siblings to be the first one to receive gifts." "Haha, of course, of course. Ah, oops, the line is breaking up. Signal's too low here." Michael got out of that conversation as fast as possible, even if his excuse didn't even make sense. "The Dragonborns will serve as great generals of their own," said Grieve. "I'm not sure about their talent to lead an army, but their strengths are definitely enough to be considered as a leader, at least I think so." Michael also couldn't see Zion becoming all serious and leading an army himself. But the young Dragonborn was definitely full of surprises. After the fight in the arena, Michael and the Dragonborns taught the knights how to drink beer properly, with one hand on waist and chugging a mug in one go. They may have inadvertently become a bad influence to the righteous knights.